I teased him saying I could leave for someone better. He got furious and planned brutal revenge.
Ever been in a situation where a little teasing spirals into a full-blown disaster? A situation whereby you did something wrong to a particular person, and they retaliated by making sure you absolutely regretted it. Have you ever been in a situation where the person sets a trap for you and carefully weaves a web of deceit for weeks just so you can absolutely ruin your relationship? Because if you've not been in a situation like that, you should thank your lucky stars. Why am I saying this? Because I have been, and I think it might just ruin my relationship. I think my relationship is done for, but I honestly don't want it to be so. My name is Rose, and I've got a story that'll make you think twice before poking fun at someone. I'm posting here because I want to rant, and also because any advice would be appreciated. I'm 26 years old, and my boyfriend Nathan is also 26. We met on Tinder, found out we went to the same college, clicked instantly, and soon found ourselves deep in a serious relationship. We have been dating for about 5 years now. I genuinely thought this was the person I would marry and spend the rest of my life with. Now, Nathan was a great guy, kind, caring, and always looking out for me. But one day I made a playful jab at him, calling him weak in a moment of jest. Little did I know that harmless comment would set off a chain reaction of revenge and deceit. Now, I know you might be wondering, why did you mock him? Honestly, I was partially being playful. And there was also the fact that Nathan had always been known as a bit of a simp. He always went out of his way to please me and make sure I was happy. This had even led to a few of our friends even playfully mocking me and calling him a simp. He didn't mind though, and would even joke along with them. I guess I always took Nathan's love and devotion for granted. He was like a rock in my life, always there to support me, always putting my needs before his own. It's easy to get comfortable in a relationship, isn't it? You start to believe that things will always be the same, that your partner will always be by your side no matter what. The day everything changed started off like any other. We were casually chatting, joking around about someone or something. I honestly don't recall the details. In the midst of our banter, I playfully teased Nathan, saying he should watch his back because I might just leave him for someone else. It was meant to be a lighthearted remark, a playful jab in the midst of our laughter. Nathan laughed and said I would never leave him, to which I then playfully said that I just might. I said he was weak and a bit of a simp, so he should probably watch me. It was all jokes, honestly, but Nathan's reaction caught me off guard. Instead of laughing it off, he fell silent. I could sense a shift in the air, a subtle tension that hadn't been there before. It was as if my words had struck a nerve and awakened something within him that he had kept hidden. Looking back now, I realize how insensitive my comment was. Nathan had always gone above and beyond to make me happy, to show me love in ways both big and small. Calling him weak and a simp in that moment was like dismissing everything he had ever done for me. It was a wake-up call, not just for him, but for me too. It made me realize the weight of my words and the impact they could have on our relationship. But little did I know this innocent banter would set off a series of events that would change things between us. After my playful banter with Nathan, things between us started feeling off. I noticed Nathan wasn't as protective as before, which was a big change because he used to always have my back, sometimes to the point of being overbearing. He'd ask about my day, check if I got home safe from work when he wasn't home, and just generally be attentive. But after that conversation, it was like a switch flipped. He stopped checking in as often, texts became fewer, and calls were more sporadic. It felt like he had withdrawn, leaving this gap between us. I tried to write it off as work stress or something temporary, but deep down I knew it was more than that. I started missing how he used to hold me close in crowds, making sure I felt safe. Now it was like he had lost that protective instinct. It left me feeling exposed, like a safety net had been pulled away. I couldn't help but wonder if my teasing had pushed him away, if I had somehow caused this shift in our relationship dynamics. I noticed that things had indeed changed between us, but I wasn't sure how to bridge that gap, or if it was even possible anymore. As Nathan and I lived together, our dynamic was such that he took on most of the household chores despite earning significantly more than me. He enjoyed cooking, cleaning, and doing the dishes, especially since he knew how much I disliked those tasks. It was a routine we had settled into, and it worked well for us. However, after that playful conversation, I noticed a shift in Nathan's behavior around the house. He stopped taking the initiative to do the chores he used to handle with joy. Cooking became less frequent, cleaning sessions were no longer as thorough, and the pile of dishes in the sink started to grow. At first, I brushed it off, thinking he might be busy or preoccupied with work. But as days turned into weeks, it became evident that something had changed. Nathan seemed less invested in our home life, almost as if he had withdrawn from the little things that used to bring us joy. I tried to pick up the slack, but it wasn't the same. I missed the days when Nathan would surprise me with a delicious dinner or clean the apartment just to see me smile. It felt like a part of our connection had faded, leaving a void in our shared responsibilities and, more importantly, in our relationship. At first, I must admit I felt a sense of relief when Nathan became less overbearing and didn't fuss over every detail of my whereabouts. It was liberating to have the freedom to go out with my friends without constantly updating him or worrying about his reactions. I could plan spontaneous weekend getaways or spend the night with my friends without feeling suffocated by messages or calls from Nathan. It was like a breath of fresh air to have that space and independence. I could focus on myself more, pursue my hobbies, and reconnect with friends without feeling guilty or obligated to constantly check in with Nathan. It felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders, and I appreciated the newfound freedom in our relationship. However, as time went on, I began to realize that this newfound freedom came at a cost. The lack of communication and engagement from Nathan started to feel like indifference. I missed the times when he would show concern or take an interest in my plans. The absence of his messages or calls, while I initially liked that, now felt like a void in our connection. I started to question whether this shift in our dynamic was healthy for our relationship. While I enjoyed the independence, I also longed for the closeness and intimacy that had once defined our bond. As Nathan's behavior continued to change, I started noticing the absence of those little gestures that used to mean so much to me. He stopped opening the car door for me, something he always did without fail before. It may seem like a small thing, but those acts of chivalry were symbols of his care and attention. Moreover, Nathan's attitude towards finances shifted as well. He earned significantly more than I did, and he used to take care of our financial needs without any complaints. If I needed money for shopping or any other expenses, he would readily provide it without hesitation. It was a comfortable arrangement that worked well for us. However, after what happened, Nathan's generosity seemed to drop. He became more frugal with his money, and I found myself having to ask for financial support, which I had never had to do before. It created this sense of unease and dependency that I wasn't accustomed to. I felt like I had lost not just his emotional support, but also the financial security that his income provided. The lack of these small but meaningful gestures and financial support added to the growing distance between us. Well, as the distance between Nathan and me grew, I found myself seeking validation and attention elsewhere. It started innocently enough, just casual conversations and harmless flirting with people I met in social settings or online. These interactions provided a temporary distraction from the emptiness I felt in my relationship with Nathan. Then as time went on, I noticed that I was seeking these interactions more frequently. The attention and compliments I received from others filled a void that was growing deeper within me. It was as if I craved that sense of being desired and appreciated, something that seemed to be missing in my relationship with Nathan. And I know you might be thinking, why didn't you just try to talk to Nathan? Well, when I tried to talk to Nathan about what I was feeling, he brushed off my concerns, and he would even gaslight me into thinking I was overthinking or projecting my insecurities onto our relationship. He would invalidate my feelings, make me doubt myself, and even question whether I was being irrational. This only made things worse. I felt unheard and misunderstood, and it pushed me further towards seeking validation outside of my relationship. As time continued to pass, the distance between Nathan and me only seemed to widen. Despite my efforts to mend our relationship, nothing seemed to work. Nathan had closed himself off emotionally, and no matter how hard I tried to communicate or reconnect, it felt like hitting a wall. The frustration and loneliness I felt reached a breaking point, and as you might have already guessed, it led to a moment of weakness where my harmless flirting crossed a line into full-on cheating. It was a mistake I deeply regretted, and I knew it was wrong. It happened only once, but the guilt still weighs heavily on me. What makes matters worse is that I didn't confess to Nathan about my infidelity. I was ashamed and afraid of his reaction. I knew it would devastate him, and I couldn't bear to see the pain in his eyes. So I hid it. The realization of how far apart Nathan and I had drifted hit me like a ton of bricks when I found out about his huge promotion and the house he bought without informing me. It was a devastating blow, and the way I found out made it even more painful. I still remember the shock and embarrassment I felt when our mutual friends casually mentioned Nathan's promotion and his new house in conversation. I was taken aback, not just by the news itself, but by the fact that Nathan hadn't deemed it necessary to share such significant milestones with me. his partner. What made it sting even more was the fact that we had always talked about getting a house together. It was a dream we both shared, and I had imagined us taking that step as a couple. The realization that Nathan had gone ahead and made such a major decision without involving me felt like a betrayal of our shared dreams and aspirations. So yeah, I decided to confront Nathan, and it was a turning point that shattered any remaining illusions I had about our relationship. I realized that he had been pushing me away and gaslighting me, making me doubt my own feelings and perceptions. Confronting him was supposed to be a moment of clarity, a chance for us to address our issues and work towards a solution. However, I'm sure you've already guessed that it didn't go as I imagined. Nathan's response was unexpected and hurtful. He accused me of disrespecting and insulting him, and he used that as justification for his changed behavior. He argued that he had always been the one putting in the effort, and that he saw no point in continuing a relationship where his efforts were not appreciated. What cut deepest was when Nathan revealed that he knew about my infidelity. It was like a dagger to my heart, realizing that he had found out about my mistake and had been holding it against me. He was very angry and then he stormed off. Now I feel like I'm at a crossroads. I feel like I'm losing or have already lost the relationship that once meant everything to me. Yes, I made a mistake, but it was born out of feeling neglected and unappreciated. Nathan may have been a simp in some ways, but he was a good simp, and I didn't want him to stop caring or making efforts for our relationship. So here I am reaching out to Reddit for advice. What should I do? Is there any way to salvage what's left of our relationship? Is there any way to get Nathan to forgive me? I just want my old Nathan back. Update. Hello Reddit. It's been a while since my first post, and I've received a lot of requests for an update, so here I am. I want to address some of the comments and DMs I received after my previous post. Firstly, I want to acknowledge the hateful comments and DMs I received. They were hurtful, and I understand that my actions have consequences. A lot of people said I was trying to narrate the story in a way that painted Nathan as the villain, but no, I'm not trying to paint Nathan as the villain or absolve myself of responsibility. I know that I made a mistake, and I take full accountability for it. Many of you suggested couples therapy and individual therapy, and I appreciate those suggestions. It's something I've been considering, as I realize the need to work on myself and our relationship. Regarding financial dependence, I agree that it was not wise of me to rely entirely on Nathan. I work in a field that honestly doesn't pay well, and Nathan, being more financially stable, took on more responsibilities. It became a pattern, and I got accustomed to it. However, I should have been more responsible and independent financially. Nathan had just always been more financially smart, and with him being the man in the relationship, I just left things up to him. Some comments mentioned that cheating is a deal breaker, and while I understand that perspective, every relationship is unique. Cheating was a mistake on my part, and I regret it deeply. However, I believe in forgiveness and second chances, especially if there's genuine love and commitment. I believe Nathan will forgive me. We've been together for a very long time. He knows that me cheating was a mistake, and I know he will get over it. Ultimately, I'm here seeking advice and guidance. I want to know if there's a way to rebuild trust and salvage what's left of our relationship. I'm aware that Nathan may not forgive me easily, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make amends and work towards a better future together. It's crazy how some folks on social media jump to conclusions about me just from a few posts. They're calling me a narcissist, unfeeling, and entitled without really knowing me or my story. They act like they've got it all figured out, saying I'll see things differently when Nathan leaves me. But relationships are way more complicated than that. You can't judge someone's life from a few online updates on posts. I have texted Nathan and he says he is on his way home. We are probably going to talk and I will update on that. Update. Hey Reddit, it's me again. I feel it's important to keep you updated, so here's the latest. Nathan returned home and we had a much-needed conversation. I suggested couples therapy as a way to work through our issues, but Nathan was leaning towards breaking up. I had to plead with him not to give up on us just yet and to give therapy a chance. We agreed that if therapy didn't help, we would then consider breaking up. Despite the challenges, I still love Nathan and want to salvage our relationship, so I'm cautiously optimistic. Plus, there's the practical aspect. I rely on him for a lot of things. We found a therapist with excellent reviews and booked our first session. I'll keep you posted on how it goes. Update. Hey Reddit, I'm back with another update. Despite the negativity I've faced on here, like I've gotten lots of DMs and comments, I believe it's important to keep you all informed. Our first therapy session was a bit rocky. Nathan had been keeping to himself a lot, and despite my efforts to engage him with special nights out or deep conversations, he still remained distant and reserved. We even had an argument during this time, which was about money. I asked him for some financial help, which he declined. For our first session, we discussed various issues and challenges. I brought up Nathan's reluctance to share money and his emotional distance. I also mentioned how sensitive he seemed about a playful comment I made. However, the therapist pointed out that Nathan's feelings were valid, and it was okay for him to express emotions like anyone else. I'll keep you all updated on how things progress from here. We went through a few more therapy sessions, and it became clear that things weren't improving as we had hoped. Nathan expressed his thoughts, and he told me that he had deeply considered our relationship but couldn't find it in himself to forgive me. He opened up about how he felt he had always been the one putting in significant effort into our relationship, shouldering responsibilities and trying to make me happy. He said that it was very hurtful for me to mock him as weak, and that me calling him a simp struck a chord. Nathan also did admit that he has purposely tried to gaslight me because he was so hurt. During our last session, Nathan then finally came clean. He wanted to break up. He mentioned that he had been working on the house he bought, and now that it was ready, he planned to move in there. To be honest, hearing that news left me in a panic. I relied on Nathan for so much, financially and emotionally. Without his support, I wouldn't be able to afford the lease on my own. The rent was simply too high. Moving back in with my parents wasn't an option either, given how crowded their house already was with my siblings and their families. Plus, I didn't really have any friend that would let me move in. I was now feeling desperate. I pleaded with Nathan to reconsider, to give our relationship a few more chances through therapy. I knew deep down that losing him would drastically change my life, and I wasn't sure how I would navigate through everything ahead without his presence and support. There was no hiding it. I was broke, and without Nathan, I would definitely fall. As much as I pleaded and begged, Nathan remained stubborn in his decision to break up. He expressed remorse but explained that he needed to move forward with his life without me. In the following days, he came over to pack his belongings. I tried everything to stop him, from emotional appeals to physically attempting to restrain him, but I guess that only seemed to anger him further. What made matters worse was that I had already spent my last paycheck, and so I was in a financial bind until the next month. With desperation starting to set in, I reached out to our mutual friends for help. I told them that Nathan was leaving me but didn't disclose the full truth about the cheating, knowing they would likely blame me if they knew. I asked them to talk to Nathan, hoping they could convince him to reconsider. However, instead of mediating, our friends bombarded Nathan with calls and messages, pushing him until he revealed the truth about my infidelity. That must have changed their perception of the situation entirely because they turned against me. They criticized me for not being honest with them and said it was disgusting that I had omitted such crucial information intentionally. The betrayal I felt from both Nathan's departure and our friends' reaction was overwhelming. I felt like I was running out of options, so I turned to our parents for help. I begged my parents to intervene and speak to Nathan and help convince him to reconsider, or at least provide me with some financial support to cover the rent and bills until I could figure things out. I also reached out to Nathan's parents, hoping they would understand and help mediate the situation. However, things didn't go as planned. I'm not sure what Nathan told them, but both sets of parents turned against me. Nathan's parents, along with mine, seemed to side with him completely. They were disappointed in me and echoed the sentiment that I was to blame for the situation. It was honestly very disheartening to see them take Nathan's side and not offer any support or understanding. After trying everything, I reached out to Nathan directly, hoping he'd understand. But he accused me of trying to ruin his reputation and said any sympathy he had was gone. Feeling desperate, I even went to Nathan's workplace to talk, but he threatened a restraining order instead. It's crazy that after we've been together for so long, he's serious about ending things completely. Now I'm stuck. Friends and family turned against me. Nathan won't help, and I'm lost on what to do next. It's tough and uncertain, and I'm really struggling to figure it out. Any advice would be appreciated. Update. This is probably my last update. Things have been really tough, and the negative comments and messages have been getting to me. People are calling me crazy and delusional and said I was stuck in my head. A lot of people even expressed sympathy and pity for Nathan more than me and said that they would probably have gone ahead to file a restraining order if they had an ex like me. Honestly, I was hoping for some understanding or support, but it's clear that's not happening. It feels like everyone has turned their backs on me, and I'm in a really tough spot. Next month's rent is a big question mark. I might not be able to afford it with how expensive things are here in my state, and the fact that there's a housing crisis. And finding a roommate hasn't been easy. If I can find someone to share expenses with, maybe I won't have to move out right away. But so far, no luck. Thanks to those who followed my story and offered advice. It's been a wild ride, and I appreciate the support.
Hey folks, Jeffrey here. I'm your typical Floridian guy with a passion for gardening. As a gardener, I've got calluses on my hands, and the Florida sun's baked my skin to a tough tan. I'm the kind of guy who's always believed in straight talk and hard work. But enough about me, let me tell you about my life, which up until recently, I would have sworn was as close to perfect as it gets. I live in a cozy corner of Sarasota with my wife Sharon, who teaches biology at the local high school, and our two amazing kids. It's funny how life throws you curveballs. You think you've got the measure of things, then bam, the game changes. It started with Sharon. She's always been as reliable as a Swiss watch. Lately though, she's been off. Missing dinner because of unexpected meetings, her phone buzzing more than a beehive at odd hours of the night. And then there's Mike, good old Mike, her colleague from the science department, who's apparently developed a sudden interest in our garden's health. When I'm not around, of course. Now, I'm not the suspicious type, but even I know that when your kids start talking about mommy's friend who makes her laugh a lot, you don't need to be Sherlock to smell something's fishy. The kids, bless their hearts, are as subtle as a hurricane. They'd mentioned, in between their stories of school and cartoons, how Mike was really funny and mommy liked to bake him cookies. Just for him. A cookie or two, I can understand. But when your son asks why Mike visits so often when daddy's at work, well, that gets the old noggin firing up, doesn't it? Stay tuned, my friends. I got a feeling this rabbit hole goes deeper, and I'm just about to peek in. Hey everyone. Unfortunately, basically everyone who is watching these videos isn't subscribed. It would mean the world to me to quickly get out of the full screen video for 3 seconds and press that subscribe button. It's free, and you can unsubscribe anytime. Sorry for bothering, and thank you so much if you subscribed. Alright guys, it's Jeffrey again. Buckle up because things just got real weird, real fast. Picture this, I'm there on the living room floor, Xbox controllers in hand, diving into a gaming session with the kiddos. It's our thing, you know, just a dad and his kids, bonding over pixelated adventures. We're laughing, trash-talking, just having a good old time. Then, out of nowhere, while we're navigating through some fantasy world, my daughter, the sweet little 9-year-old she is, drops a bombshell. Daddy, why does Mike go to mommy's bedroom when you're trimming Mrs. Henderson's overgrown hedges? My son, the ever-observant 11-year-old, chimes in, yeah, they were playing a game too, but it looked weird. I'm telling you, my heart didn't just drop, it did a nosedive right through the floor. At first, I laugh it off. Kids say the darndest things, right? But the look in their eyes, that innocent questioning stare, kids don't lie about stuff like this. They don't even know they should. So there I am, a grown man, feeling like I've just taken a shovel to the gut. I'm furious, confused, and feeling a kind of hurt that's a stranger to me. I'm not the kind to show my kids anything but smiles and strength, so I muster up the calmest voice I can and tell them, let's put a pin in this game for now, champ and sweetheart. Daddy needs to step out for a bit. I head to my local cafe because, frankly, I'm one wrong thought away from losing it. The cafe boss, a burly guy with a heart of gold who's known me since high school, sees my face and motions me over without a word. We sit, and I spill everything, every last detail while he listens, brewing me the strongest cup of joe I've ever had. He doesn't say much, just gives me that solid, knowing nod. Jeff, you know what you gotta do, right? He says. And I nod because, yeah, I do know. But man, nothing prepares you for this kind of storm. Not in a million years. Stay tuned, folks. This story's far from over. First things first, I start paying a little more attention to the details. You know, the ones that slip by when life's rolling along as usual. Like how Sharon's always got her phone on her, like it's some kind of top secret device. And her computer, password protected out of nowhere. Then, there are the receipts. Little slips of paper, whispering stories of dinners for two when she said she was dining with the ladies from school. One night when Sharon's out at one of her meetings, I decide to play it cool and give her a call. "Hey, hon, just wondering when you'll be home?" I ask, voice casual. The pause before she answers, telltale. "Oh, running late. Lots of papers to grade," she says, but I can hear it, the faintest sound of clinking glasses in the background. The rage is there, yeah, but it's wrapped tight in a cocoon of sorrow. It's a heavy, dragging thing that follows me around, whispering doubts and anger in my ear. Every time I look at Sharon, I see lies. When she smiles at me, I see deception. It's the gaslighting that really gets to me, though. Like when I mention Mike's frequent visits and she laughs, saying I'm imagining things, that they're just friends. Or when I find a man's watch under our bed, one I've never seen before, and she tells me it's an early birthday present for me. I wasn't born yesterday, Sharon. So there I am, collecting these shreds of betrayal, feeling like I'm in one of those crime shows. Except, this isn't TV, and there's no script to follow. Just a guy who thought he had it all, realizing he might be about to lose everything. So I waited for Sharon to come home, her heels clicking against the tile like a timer counting down. When she saw the look on my face, that smile slipped right off. I didn't waste any time, didn't play any games. I laid it all out. Every receipt, every whisper of a rumor, every damn timestamp that didn't add up. And that watch, that shiny symbol of betrayal I found under our bed. The room felt like it was vibrating with my rage. I stood there, a man betrayed, a man whose trust had been shattered like a glass thrown against a wall. "Sharon," I said, my voice like gravel, "don't even try to deny it." And you know what? She didn't. The floodgates opened, and out it all poured. The lies turned to confessions. The secrets turned to admissions. Mike this, Mike that. She was crying, but the tears didn't move me, not anymore. I told her, "You're going to tell me where he lives." My voice was steel, my resolve absolute. I was ready to tear this guy apart with my bare hands. And she saw it, the fury in my eyes, the set of my jaw. She knew I wasn't a man to be tested. She spilled the details, voice trembling. She begged me not to go, pleaded with me that it was over, that it was a mistake. But a mistake made one too many times stops being a mistake and becomes a choice. So there I was, with the truth burning a hole in my pocket and revenge singing like a siren in my ears. This was it, the moment of truth, and I had a decision to make. Okay guys, it's Jeffrey again. You know when you're about to get into a big fight and your heart's pumping so hard you can hear it? That was me, waiting for Sharon to get home. My head was spinning with all the stuff I'd found out, and I was ready to let it all out. She walked in, all smiles, but that smile dropped when she saw my face. I didn't waste any time. "We gotta talk," I said, and slapped the phone records on the table. I'd circled all the calls to Mike's number in red so she could see them clear as day. For a second, it was super quiet. Then she looked at me, and I could tell she knew the game was up. "Jeffrey, I can explain," she started, but I wasn't about to sit through another round of lies. "Cut the crap, Sharon," I snapped. "The kids have been talking, you know. They've seen you and Mike, so just spill it." The next part was like watching a dam break in slow motion. She started crying, saying it was all a big mistake, that she didn't mean to hurt me. I felt like laughing. A mistake? No, what she did was way more than that. I was so mad I could barely see straight. I thought about this guy, Mike, laughing behind my back, thinking he could mess with my life. "Where does he live?" I demanded. I wanted to see the fear on his face when he realized I knew. Sharon was crying harder now, begging me to let it go, but that wasn't going to happen. I kept at it until she gave up his address between sobs and sniffles. So there I was, standing in the middle of our broken life. Sharon was a mess, but I couldn't feel sorry for her. Not after what she did. Everything we had was turned upside down because she couldn't be honest. I knew what I had to do next. This wasn't just about yelling and screaming. This was about setting things right. And maybe that meant having a face-to-face with Mike. "Hey Reddit, Jeffrey here. After the showdown with Sharon, I didn't just sit around. I had plans, and I was going to make sure everyone knew the kind of person Sharon really was. First off, I made a few calls. One to her school principal, a buddy of mine, to give him a heads up about the kind of morals his biology teacher had. Then, I had chats with a couple of Sharon's friends. Just dropped some hints about the rumors going around. Didn't take long for the news to spread like wildfire. Gossip in our small town moves faster than a gator on the prowl. It wasn't long before Sharon's perfect little world started to crumble. Her friends, they turned their backs on her one by one. Her job? Let's just say she had to take an extended leave due to the personal issues becoming too much of a distraction. Then came the custody battle. I was like a dog with a bone. I wasn't gonna let go. I got myself the toughest lawyer in town and we went to work. I showed the judge all the evidence, laid it out straight. I talked about how I wanted to make sure my kids had a stable home with a parent they could count on. The court sessions were brutal. Sharon tried to paint a picture of regret, of a mother who made one mistake, but I wasn't having any of it. This was about what was best for the kids, and I made sure the judge knew it. It took time and it wasn't easy, but I got what I wanted: full custody. Watching Sharon as the judge gave the ruling, I saw everything: her shock, her desperation. But the kids were my priority, and I had to do what was best for them. So there it is. Sharon's life turned into a train wreck, but I got my kids. They're the only good thing to come out of this mess. And me? I'm just trying to move on, to build a life where we can forget about all the hurt and lies. The fallout was tough, but we're getting through it one day at a time. Sharon, well, she got what she deserved, as harsh as that sounds. You play with fire, you're gonna get burned. After I got everything sorted with Sharon and the kids, there was still one thing eating at me: Mike. I had his address burning a hole in my pocket and a head full of rage. So, I decided it was time for a little visit. I rolled up to Mike's place, a neat little house with a 2-car garage and a lawn that could use some of my expertise. The moment he opened the door and saw me, his face went white as a sheet. "We need to talk," I said, pushing past him into the house. The look on his face was priceless, a mix of fear and guilt. I didn't come here to chat, though. I came for answers and maybe a little bit more. Mike started with the apologies, the excuses, but I wasn't buying it. "Save it," I told him. "You knew she was married." That's when things got heated. Mike made the mistake of trying to shove me out, but I wasn't having any of that. We went at it, right there in his fancy living room with the big screen TV and family photos staring down at us. I'm not proud of it, but let's just say Mike got a taste of how a betrayed husband throws a punch. In the scuffle, a lamp crashed to the floor, and that's when his wife came running in. She screamed, seeing us tangled up on the floor, me on top, and Mike looking like he regretted all his life choices. She didn't waste any time and called the cops. While we waited for the boys in blue, I told her everything. The affair, the lies, all of it. You could see her world shattering with every word. By the time the cops showed up, Mike was nursing a bloody nose, and his marriage was in pieces on the floor, just like that broken lamp. The cops took our statements and I laid it all out, the whole sordid story. Mike didn't say much, just sat there looking like a man who'd lost everything, which he had. His wife was crying, asking him if it was true, and all he could do was nod. I left Mike's house with the cops, my hands shaking, my heart pounding. I was still angry, sure, but it felt like I'd let out some of the poison that had been building up inside me. After all that drama, I put all my energy into the two things that mattered most: my kids and my job. The gardens never looked better, and I swear those plants can feel when you're tending to them with a clear head. And the kids? They're doing great. We've had our share of tough talks and tearful nights, but we're getting through it together. As for Sharon, well, she's been on a bit of a downward slide. Last I heard, she's been trying to stitch her life back together, but it hasn't been easy. She's reached out, tried to make amends, but I can't find it in me to hear her out. Maybe that makes me cold, but when trust is broken like that, it changes things for good. A few months down the line, I'm sitting here, and it's like I can finally breathe again. I've learned a lot about myself, about karma, and about how life has a way of balancing the scales. Cutting Sharon out was like cutting out a piece of my own history, but it was necessary. It was either that or keep living a lie, and that's not how I roll. For anyone out there who finds themselves in a similar spot, here's my 2 cents. Be strong, be decisive. And remember, you gotta look out for yourself and your own because, at the end of the day, you're the one who has to live with your choices. So, yeah, justice, if that's what you want to call it, has been served, at least in my book. I've got a whole new appreciation for the quiet moments, a cold beer after a long day, and the sound of my kids laughing in the backyard. The road's been rough, but I'm still standing. And that's something to be proud of. Thanks for listening, Reddit. Jeffrey, over and out. Thanks for listening. If you would subscribe, that would mean the world to me. Have a good rest of your day or night.
My husband was the most insufferable man ever. You couldn't begin to comprehend the ego of the man. He had the audacity to kick me out of his house over a stupid game. He was also playing the game, so I thought he was okay with it. I didn't know my husband was conceited and petty, but do you guys want to know one thing about me? I was more petty. He tried to make me feel stupid and wanted to make sure I regretted it, but I decided to play at his own game. Yes, I played my husband at his own game of making sure I regretted my actions. I had to make sure he felt the regret himself, and it was a drastic war between us. Before this event, we had been cool. I had loved being married to my husband. He had been one of the most charming and nice people I had ever met. This was part of the reason that had attracted me to him. My name is Paige, and I'm 26 years old. My husband's name is Robert, and he's 29 years old. I had met Robert at my friend Lillian's birthday party. He had looked out of place. I had walked up to him, and we got talking. From there, I learned that he was studying to get his master's degree in investment and assets management at the University of Tulsa in Oklahoma. He had come all the way from Tulsa to Norman in OK for Lillian's birthday party because Lillian had told him she wanted him to meet someone. That someone had been me. After Lillian formally introduced us, we hit it off. From there, we quickly became friends and hung out on the weekends when he would drive down from Tulsa to see me or I would go visit him. I wasn't in college because I didn't attend and was always working to make ends meet back then. Anyway, the dynamic worked between us and I got to know his friends and he got to know mine with us and I got to know his friends and hang out with them. And he got to know mine. We started dating 2 years later when he was done with his master's program and began working as a stockbroker for a financial company in Tulsa. And then he told me to move to Tulsa and start living with him. I had been in between jobs at that moment, so I had agreed. Once I moved to Tulsa, I got a job as a customer rep at a 5-star hotel and got to know my husband even more as I was living with him. Again, our dynamic worked even living together. I became closer with his friends and I would have said family, but my husband didn't have any family. He had been orphaned at the age of 6 and had grown up in the system. All the houses he had been put in didn't turn out well for him because of the parents of the families, but he had still remained friends with the people he had met in the system. This is why he had friends and not family. Anyway, after a year of dating, my husband proposed to me. It hadn't been an outstanding ceremony, but we had his friends, and the few friends I had from Norman and the one I had made in Tulsa had cheered for us as my husband bent down on one knee to ask me to be by his side forever. I've been married to my husband for 3 years now, and during that time, I've become a hotel concierge, and he's gone on to open his own firm. We decided on not having kids till at least 5 years into our marriage. It was a joint decision as we wanted to enjoy our time as a married couple before children would come into the mix. We decided we would do all the fun things as couples, go on adventures, attend parties, just basically be childish together until our set mark to have children. I had loved the idea of getting to experience fun things as a married couple. I just hadn't expected my husband to be someone who couldn't take a joke or someone who was overly insecure. This was the beginning of our problems. My husband had been invited to a house party by one of his foster friends. It was meant to be just an indoorsy kind of thing. I'm sure you guys get the vibe. We got there and then discovered it wasn't a small gathering of 5 we had expected. There were over 15 people present, people my husband and I didn't know except the host. The party was quiet for the first 2 hours. You know, people just trying to get to know each other and all. Do you want to know what I was doing during that time? I stuck to my husband like the loving and devoted wife I was. I was literally glued to his side. And my husband was mid-social. He only talked to you if you talked to him. He wasn't the kind to walk up to strike up a conversation, so the people getting to know us were the ones coming around to talk to my husband, despite his broody face. Then, after 2 hours of basic socializing with music in the background, the host, who was my husband's friend, claimed the party was too dull and something needed to be done to liven it up. Boom. Someone suggested a game of spin the bottle, and over half of the guests present agreed. In a room full of adults past the age of 25, over half wanted to play a childish game, and I was one of them. I was excited because it had been a long time since I partook in something like that. Call me childish if you may. But I had raised up my hand along with 8 other people when the host called for volunteers. As you would have guessed, my husband was already boiling with anger, and he told me in hushed words that I shouldn't join in on the game. He had been quite stern when he had said I shouldn't join, but I saw it as him trying to spoil my fun for the evening. After all, he had been the one that had brought me to the party in the first place, and when it began to liven up, he wanted to stop my fun? Ain't no way that was going to happen. I joined in without his consent, and only when the bottle had already landed on one of the ladies in the circle did I realize that it was only singles that had joined in to play the game. Did I regret my actions at that point in time? Yes, I did, but I couldn't back out then because the point of our whole pact, my husband and I, was to be adventurous and so fun in our marriage before we had to start carrying on the responsibility of children that other people would be envious of what we have. And if I had backed put, then they would see my husband as overbearing, which he was, and they would see me as no fun, which I wasn't. So I stuck to the game. What was the worst thing that could have happened? I realized the worst thing that could happen a few minutes later when the bottle mouth pointed to me and the bottle end pointed to a guy that wasn't part of my husband's friend group. Then the guy dared me to take off a piece of my clothing. The murmurs had started up immediately because other people apart from the stupid dimwit had realized I was a married woman, and they were all looking back and forth between my husband and I to see if an alpha fight would break out. Well, my husband didn't do anything, and the stupid dimwit finally realized there was a ring on my finger and then settled for a peck on the cheek. I could do that with ease, and all the tension would calm. That was what I had thought to myself. I was wrong as always. The tension didn't calm. In fact, it grew worse because as I turned to give the stranger a peck, and he shifted his face, which made me give him a kiss on his mouth. I gave a stranger a kiss by mistake, and my husband had seen it. Everyone that had been around the circle had pretended not to see that the guy had turned on purpose. They all just kept silent and avoided my eyes. But my husband had seen it. I was ashamed at first, of course. I had been ashamed because one random stranger had gotten the best of me. He had turned his head deliberately. Apparently, my husband hadn't seen it as the mistake it was. He saw it as defiance, and he didn't spare any words in telling me how I had disrespected him and blah, blah, blah. He was mad, but I was mad too because I had also tried explaining that the kiss had been a mistake. It had never been my intention to kiss a guy I had no idea who he was. However, what my husband was mad about was the fact that I had gone to play the game in the first place. According to him, if I hadn't gone to play the game, the kiss would have never happened. Can you guys imagine that? Wasn't he supposed to take my side first? Why was I the first on his list for appropriation of blame instead of the guy who had asked for a peck and turned a harmless peck into a mouth-to-mouth kiss? Well, I didn't argue further that night, and I remembered clearly that I had apologized. I had gone to sleep with the thought that all was finally well. You guys wouldn't believe the tantrum my husband threw the next day and the following days after it. He never let me forget it. And do you guys want to know the cherry on top of the cake? He kicked me out. After a full week of enduring his tantrums over a stupid spin-the-bottle game, my husband came back one evening from work and said he couldn't bear to see my face knowing that I had disrespected him in front of people he knew and didn't know. Can you guys begin to comprehend that lame reason? I had wounded his ego, and instead of maybe talking about it or maybe listening to me, because I wasn't the one wrong in any way, he decided to throw me out. I just knew it had been his friends. There had been no other logical reason why my husband would make that kind of rash decision. Well, by the next morning, my husband had brought out my luggage from my room and said we needed to take a break. Who in the world takes a break from marriage over one stupid kiss that had been a mistake? I was disappointed because I had thought he would sleep it off because it was mostly frustrations from work, and it wouldn't be a big deal, but I was proved wrong by the time morning came around. You guys can't begin to imagine my shock at waking up to get dressed for work, and seeing my husband with my suitcase in his hand telling me he needed a break from our marriage. And do you know what he did when I told him I wasn't leaving? He became more justified in his action. He told me that this was my problem. According to him, I didn't respect his opinions. How was I supposed to respect him kicking me out of his house in a city where I didn't know anyone closely to ask them for a place to stay? But my husband hadn't put that fact into consideration. He just swung his ego around and didn't like that I hadn't sucked up to his stupid alpha tendencies. I left my husband's house to go and stay in one of the staff's rooms in the hotel where I worked. I had to stoop low to ask my coworkers if they had an extra place for me to sleep at their houses. To say I had been beyond livid wasn't even going to cut it, all because of a stupid kiss. If I had actually kissed the dimwit, then okay, I wouldn't have been so angry, but I hadn't deliberately kissed the man and see what I was suffering. So I decided to actually justify the reason why I was suffering so I wouldn't be suffering for nothing. After all, my husband had said he wanted us to take a break from our marriage, and I was going to do just that. And I did just that, you guys. I sought out the reason for the break in my marriage and decided to fully go for the kiss. Luckily, if you wanted to find anybody in Tulsa, just go by the major convenience store. They were bound to come by sooner or later, and the dimwit happened by. I had bumped into him on purpose, and he remembered me. Of course he would. I wasn't at all forgettable, except to my husband. Anyway, we hit it off and began going out. On one of those outings, when he had escorted me back to the staff room of the hotel I was staying in, I had sneakily grabbed him in and took the kiss that had caused a whole lot of trouble, and believe me, it had been worth it. From then on, we began sleeping together. This lasted for 2 whole months, and in that period of time, my husband never made to contact me, not even once. He never showed up at my workplace to ask of me or call my family to know if I had been doing well. Nothing. Nada. Meanwhile, the dimwit that had accidentally kissed me was treating me like I was his lady. I know you all must be wondering if he didn't know that I was married. He knew, but he also thought I had gone through a divorce. I lied that my husband and I being at the party was our last leap at trying to save our marriage, but after the party it didn't work out, and we officially divorced. My affair hadn't even seemed to mind. He treated me like an egg, thinking I had just gone through a rough divorce. It had been as easy as that, and I was having the time of my life. My affair took me on dates, was fun, didn't get worked up over something like my husband did, and wasn't one to throw tantrums. He listened, and I had thought I had hit the jackpot, you guys, with no husband attached to my status. I was happy. I was happy because even if my husband caught me cheating, there was no way he was going to blame it on me. He had been the one to insist on taking a break in our marriage after all. He hadn't specified what taking a break meant. I was so certain he was having the time of his life and expecting me to be somewhere in the corner sulking over the fact that he hadn't called me for 2 whole months. I mean, I might as well live my life like I wasn't married, right? The next week, my husband decided that he should call me. Like, could you imagine? He thought maybe I finally learned my lesson and we could start to live together again. My husband actually said that. As if our marriage was like a movie you could press pause and then play for. Lol, I had never lived a more hilarious moment in my life. You wanted me to learn to respect you, and what you do is kick me out of the house in the hopes that I would come crawling at your feet and begging you for forgiveness. My husband had another thing coming. I wasn't going to go back to him until he was the one who begged me to return. I wasn't a plaything. I was his wife. And he had treated me like garbage, all because his friends had told him I didn't respect him from my actions at that stupid spin-the-bottle game. To be frank, I had never even wanted to go to that party, but my husband had coaxed me to go. I went to the party because of him. I stuck to his side the entire boring night, and when I got the opportunity to do something fun, he tried to coddle me. Did that seem fair? Then after he threw his tantrums for a full week, he went drinking with his friends and had listened to their drunk rantings about respect and their stupid ego and had got back and told me he wanted a break from marriage because I didn't respect him. And even if I didn't, it had just been a one-time thing. He decided that would be punishment for a one-time incident where I had disrespected him. Well, on the day he called me to tell me I could come back to his house, that our break was over, that day I decided my husband was going to grovel. And I succeeded. Yes, I did. My husband began calling me every day the following week after his first call when I had told him in plain terms that my break wasn't over yet. He started showing up to my workplace, disturbing my phone and my coworkers. all the things I had wanted him to do, but it was too late at that moment. He got me flowers and all the stuff that would make a woman weak in the knees, but I wasn't budging. I didn't plan on budging, but something else happened. I found out that I was pregnant. And before you all come for me that I had gotten pregnant for my affair and wanted to plant it on my husband, that wasn't true. Here was what happened. I had fainted one day at work and was rushed to the hospital. The doctor told me I had put my baby under great risk, and when I told him there was no way I was pregnant, he confirmed that I was already 6 months along. I had asked how it was possible I wasn't showing yet, and why I had felt no symptoms of the pregnancy, and the doctor told me my pregnancy was probably a cryptic one, and that wasn't a bad thing, as long as I didn't stress myself too hard. I only began seeing my affair 2 months from that time, so there was no way it was from him. So I had to go back to my husband. But I didn't tell him I was pregnant just yet. I wanted to see how he would treat me because in my mind I didn't think our marriage would work again. Believe me, I wanted it too, but I didn't think it would because I knew my husband was going to find out about my affair. When I got back to his house, I knew our marriage was a ticking time bomb, but I decided to enjoy it because my husband decided he was going to keep groveling. He took me out on dates, shopping, sent me money unexpectedly, basically did things that had shown he was sorry, and I was on the lookout to see when the thread of good things would snap. My affair had started his own madness movement. He would disappear for days on end, and I just cut him off from there. My husband was back to his senses, so I had no need for him. Remember when I said it was only a matter of time before my husband reverted back to his tantrums? It wasn't even up to 2 weeks before he brought up the topic of me disrespecting him, and he told me I shouldn't do it again, or he was going to leave me. There was another party that night that another one of his friends was hosting, and it was mandatory I attended with him, for a reason I hadn't known. But everything happened for a reason. The party was the snapping factor of my marriage. Before the party, I had planned to tell my husband, but he had gotten me so outraged with the "don't disrespect me" talk, so I didn't tell him then and planned to do so after the party. Another mistake I made. My sleeping with another man was exposed at the party. I mean, you couldn't have written a better controversial script than the one that had happened at that party. It was so unbelievable. The man I'd had an affair with decided to show up at the party and saw me at the party with my husband and decided his ego couldn't take a little trip. He walked up to me and started yapping so loud that he got the attention of the party. When the murmurings increased, I knew they had caught wind of our conversation, and it wasn't long until my husband came into the conversation and understood what was going on. The look on his face was comical, because I had done the very thing he told me not to do when we had left for the party. My husband left the party without me, and when I got back home, he had locked me out and thrown my things out. Thank God I hadn't fully moved out of the staff room when that had happened. The next week, a lawyer called me and told me my husband wanted me to sign divorce papers, and I was to meet him at the office. I got there and my husband was already waiting for me. He was livid and flung the divorce papers in my face. Then that's when I dropped the bomb. I told him I was carrying his baby. Of course he didn't believe it, and at that point in time I couldn't be bothered if he believed it or not. I signed the divorce papers willingly because I didn't want to be married to him. I already knew our marriage was over, just like I had said before. If you're wondering if he asked for a paternity test, he did. My baby was born 2 months later, and my ex-husband got the paternity test and found out it was his daughter. Do you know this man had the effrontery to take me to court to derive me of my right to take care of my child? He wanted to take my child from me. Luckily, the court didn't find any tangible evidence that I was a bad citizen and granted us both joint custody of our child, and he was fined for wasting their time. Served him right. Next time, he wouldn't be so stupid. I went back to Norman after the court settlement, and we agreed to him coming to see our child once in a month till my daughter grew older for him to be taking her on weekend visit to Tulsa. That's how my marriage ended, and in my heart, I have no grudges against my husband, but I hope he fixes his ego trip before he gets married again. And if you don't support my side of the story, I honestly don't care.